Hi, I'm Alex. Today I'm sharing a story about my younger sister Clara and how she moved into my home, set her own rules, and treated me like her personal assistant until I fought back. Buckle up because this one has a twist you won't see coming. I'm Alex Parker, 30 years old, software engineer, and proud homeowner. 3 years ago, I closed on a small craftsman in Portland with money I saved building security apps. It's got 3 bedrooms, a home office with big windows, and a tiny yard where I grow herbs. I love routine 7 a.m., wake up oatmeal and tea code. Until lunch, quick run around the block, code some more dinner, a bit of reading, then sleep. No drama, just me and my smart locks cameras and custom alerts that let me watch my house from anywhere. Clara, my sister, calls me every couple of weeks. She's 33, has 2 kids. Ben 8, Mia 6, and a messy divorce behind her. Her ex skipped town 5 years ago and hasn't paid support. Over the years, I helped cover her rent and groceries because nobody else would. The kids are sweet, but I barely saw them growing up. We live 2 states apart. I didn't mind helping her when she needed a hand. Then one evening in late May, my phone buzzed. Clara. Hey Alex, can we come visit next weekend? The kids miss you. Her tone was casual, but something felt off. I grinned. I miss my niece and nephew too. Me, sure, Saturday lunch at 1 p.m. Clara, perfect, we'll be there. I spent the next 2 days cleaning, stocking up on snacks, and ordering those dinosaur chicken nuggets they love. Saturday morning, I set out fresh towels in the guest room and lined the hall closet with coat hangers. I even tilled my little herb garden, imagining Mia helping me plant basil. At 12:45 p.m., I heard a car rumble down the street. Before I reached the front door, Clara was hauling 2 huge rolling suitcases past me. Alex, she called, grinning. We brought everything. Ben and Mia tumbled out behind her, dragging duffel bags bigger than they are, like. My heart sank, everything I echoed, forcing a smile. Of course, we're staying with you for a while, she said, tossing one suitcase into the foyer. Wait a second, I said, palm against the doorframe. We talked about a weekend visit. Clara's smile hardened. We discussed it with Mom. She said it's fine, you have spare rooms, I need you, and the kids need stability. She pulled out her phone. Watch me, she dialed. Clara into phone. Hi, Mom. Yes, we're at Alex's. Yeah, she said it was fine. Thanks. Love you. She handed me the phone. See, you agreed. I stared at my mother's gentle voice pleading through the speaker. Dear, your sister needs a place. She called last week and I thought you'd said yes. I swallowed. Mom, I never said that. She sighed. Oh, you did. Surely you remember. I closed my eyes and visualized my pristine life coat in my pajamas, quiet evenings, that brand new ergonomic chair I loved. Torn between guilt and panic, I nodded. Fine, but we need rules. Clara grinned triumphantly. Absolutely. I'll keep the place tidy. Mom says it's temporary just until I get my next contract. That first week actually went better than I expected. Clara got a job interview at a catering company and worked mornings. She picked the kids up from school. They'd knock softly on my office door asking for help with homework. Ben was surprisingly good at math. Mia adored my cat Pixel and spent hours reading to him. My parents popped by for Sunday brunch and raved. You're such a generous sister, Alex's dad said, wiping syrup from his chin. Mom added, the kids look so happy. I felt a brief thrill maybe I could pull this off. But the cracks appeared just after 2 weeks. Clara started freelancing for an event planner and claimed she needed to work late nights to prove herself. The kids arrived home before I was done with meetings. Dinner, homework, bedtime stories, it all fell on me. Weekends morphed into full-time childcare, soccer games, birthday parties, zoo trips. My office chair gathered dust. Then came the night she sneaked out at 11 p.m. and reeked of perfume and alcohol when she returned. I tried talking to her, but she snapped, I deserve some fun, Alex. Stop acting like their mom. Pinched between outrage and concern for the kids, I stayed silent. One Tuesday morning, Clara announced Ben's teacher wants a meeting tomorrow. Can you go? I'm working. That was the final straw. I rearranged my schedule to attend and sat in the conference room answering questions about my nephew's grades as if I were his legal guardian. At 9 p.m. that night, I called my mom desperate for backup. Mom, Clara's not pulling her weight. She's out drinking, dating, and I'm raising her kids. Mom sighed. She's healing, Alex. Give her time. But she's neglecting the kids, I pleaded. Mia asked why mommy's never home anymore. My mom's only reply, let her grow. Family helps family. Family helps family. Those words echoed in my empty living room as I watched Ben fall asleep on the couch, Mia clutching her stuffed bunny. My perfect life was gone, but... And for what my sister's broken promises and my parents' blind loyalty, I knew I had to draw a line. But I had no idea where to start. I woke before sunrise the next morning, my mind racing through every moment of the past weeks, replaying Clara's empty promises and my parents' unwavering support for her. I didn't sleep well. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mia tugging at her mother's skirt in the grocery aisle, while Clara slipped out for another drink. I resolved that today I would confront her and draw a clear line. No more shifting responsibilities, no more broken rules. I made coffee, checked my inbox, and steeled myself for what I had to do. When the kids padded into the kitchen, rubbing sleep from their eyes, I greeted them with bright smiles. "Breakfast in 10 minutes," I said, keeping my voice calm. They chattered about a school project, oblivious to the storm I felt brewing inside. I reminded Ben to pack his lunch and Mia to wash her face, then slipped upstairs to Clara's door. It stood ajar just as it had when she staggered in past midnight. I knocked gently and stepped inside to find her curled on the edge of the bed, scrolling through her phone with one eye closed. "Morning," I said quietly. She glanced up, wearing a robe that didn't quite hide the circles under her eyes. "Morning," she mumbled, then went back to her screen. I closed the door behind me and sat on the corner of the bed. "We need to talk," I began. She didn't look at me. "About last night," I said. "You came home drunk again and you missed dinner with the kids. They waited for you." Her lips curled into a half smile. "It was a one-off," she said. "I needed a break." I felt my chest tighten. "You need a break. They need a mother." I watched her jaw clench. "I won't apologize for living my life," she snapped, voice low. "I'm helping you remember. Pay attention." The words cut sharper than any accusation. I stood up, letting the morning light fill the room. "Are you kidding me? I've been doing everything, dropping them at school, cooking, cleaning, all while trying to keep my job afloat." "You said you picked them up today." Her phone buzzed. She silenced it without looking. "I have an audition," she said flippantly. A chance to get back on my feet. My anger rose. "What about your contract? You promised you'd work standard hours after your promotion." She shrugged. "You're too strict. You've always been that way." It was the oldest trick in the book, twist the argument, so I looked unreasonable. I took a deep breath. "If you can't stick to a schedule, you can't stay here." She laughed softly. "You want me out?" "Fine, but don't think you can force me to leave the kids." She tapped her phone again. "Mom's coming over this afternoon." I froze. "You're calling her now?" She nodded. "I'll tell her you're kicking me out." My hands trembled. "You know what? Go ahead. And I'll call her too. Tell her the truth." She stared. What truth? I walked to my office and grabbed the USB drive with the security footage I'd prepared. My heart pounded as I plugged it in. Clara's face paled when I summoned the video, her wobbling across the porch at midnight, the stale scent of liquor around her. Next, the moment Mia sliced her leg open under the coffee table with me rushing to her side. Clara bit her lip as she watched. I closed the laptop and faced her. "These aren't lies. I'm done letting you manipulate me and them." She looked away, tears welling. I didn't soften. "You have until tomorrow morning to find another place. No more threats, no more excuses." She stumbled from the room and slammed the door. I heard muffled sobs. My chest ached for my sister, but I knew I had to protect the kids and my own life. All day I tried to work, but half my brain pictured their faces, wondering where they'd end up. When Mom arrived, I met her in the living room. She carried Clara's favorite tea, but her eyes were guarded. "I heard there was a problem," she said. I didn't invite her in. Instead, I asked her to sit. I explained Clara's late nights, the broken promises, the moment she threatened to call the police. Mom frowned. "She's under a lot of pressure," she said. "This house is helping her." I shook my head. "She's using me and the kids." I handed her the laptop. Together we watched the footage. Mom's face softened when she saw Clara's staggering walk, then hardened when she saw me patching Mia up. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I didn't realize. We agreed Clara needed a fresh start, but she could not stay here. Mom offered to take Clara and the kids for a week to regroup. In the afternoon, I took Ben and Mia to the park. We swung on the swings and fed the ducks. For a moment, the world felt normal again. Their laughter reminded me why I fought so hard. Tonight would be Clara's last here. Clara's fury erupted the moment I refused her pleas. Instead of quietly gathering her things that evening, she hurled accusations, accusing me of betrayal, of siding with Mom and Dad against her. I kept my voice steady as I reminded her of her own words that if she couldn't follow our agreement, she would find another place. She slammed the door of her old room, leaving the hallway echoing with the click of the lock. That night, I lay awake listening for her car to leave, or her phone call demanding sympathy. But neither came. By morning, the house was silent, except for Pixel's gentle purring and the distant hum of traffic. I poured myself coffee and noted the empty guest room, the untouched suitcase by the door, the absence of little footprints. Clara had vacated everything except her resentment. I cleaned her bedroom in a meditative state, folding her clothes, boxing her few possessions, and returning each memento to her. With each object I placed in the box, I felt a weight lifting from my chest. I snapped on evening news in the kitchen as I scrubbed the last dish she'd left in the sink and found clarity in the routine chores rinse, rinse, pat, dry stack. Mid-morning, my parents called wanting to check in. I met them in the living room and showed them the empty upstairs landing. She left, I said, and my voice held no triumph, only relief. Dad nodded as if acknowledging the end of a long, fraught chapter, while Mom quietly admitted she'd underestimated how far Clara would push. We agreed not to force reconciliation. Clara needed space to rebuild without using their kindness as leverage. After the call, I sat on the couch with Pixel curled in my lap and let myself breathe. I realized how little I'd slept these past weeks, how my desk papers had piled up and my email inbox overflowed. I spent the afternoon reclaiming my routines. I washed my favorite mug that Clara had chipped, reorganized my office shelves, and reset my door code so that only my key fob and fingerprint would gain entry. The small acts felt monumental. When evening came, I sat at the kitchen table and ate the dinner. I actually wanted a burrito bowl loaded with fresh salsa and cilantro. The television played an old sitcom in the background, but I paid attention to the taste of cilantro on my tongue and the warmth of the bowl in my hands. That night, I slept through the first thunderstorm of the season without a single jolt at a creak or bump. The next morning, I woke naturally, no alarm, and strolled barefoot across the hardwood floors to the windows, where the garden glistened with dew. I watered my basil and mint, imagining how my code would protect this sanctuary from any intrusion. By midday, the emails were under control, and I ordered lunch for delivery so I wouldn't break the new calm I'd created. I spent the afternoon reading a novel lost in another world instead of worrying about someone else's children. When Mom dropped off Ben and Mia later that week, their arrival was bright and affectionate. Mia raced into my arms. Ben recounted his art project enthusiastically, and I reminded them we'd bake cookies after school. Watching the kids laugh and chase Pixel, I understood that my home was finally mine again, a place of safety and honesty. That evening, as I lay in bed with Pixel curled beside me, I felt a peace I hadn't known since before Clara's arrival. I closed my eyes and let the steady rhythm of my breath remind me that sometimes the hardest boundaries yield the sweetest liberation. That afternoon, as I closed my laptop and leaned back, my phone buzzed with a message from Clara. "We need to talk. Now." I didn't reply. She wouldn't find me in my office or my favorite cafe. Instead, I finished an episode of my show and waited. When her second text arrived, "Open your door, Alex," I checked the front entrance on my security app. Clara stood on my porch, arms crossed, Ben clutching her coat and Mia holding a teddy bear, their faces pinched with confusion. I took a deep breath and unmuted my smart lock speaker. "Clara, you're not welcome here. Please leave." Her jaw dropped. "You can't do this to your sister and your nephews." "I already have," I said, my voice steady. "I offered help through Mom." "You refused." She glanced at the kids whose wide eyes brimmed with tears. "Mom changed her mind." Clara lied. "She says you have to let us in." "Mom didn't." I replied softly and I locked the door. Clara pounded on the wood, her voice rising into frantic cries. "You're kicking out your own family. I'll call the police for wrongful eviction." I sighed and tapped my phone. Within seconds, my security cameras saved a time-stamped video of Clara dropping off her suitcases yesterday, and another showing her stumbling and drunk at midnight last week. I sent both to the responding officers. When they arrived 19 minutes later, I met them calmly on the porch. Clara tried to explain, but the officer asked to see the recordings. As I replayed the child endangerment footage, Clara's face went ashen. The boys clung to her legs, torn between comfort and shame. The officer nodded, closed his notebook, and told Clara she needed a court order to re-enter. She begged, she whimpered, but the law was clear: private property rights. When they left, she carried the kids down the driveway in stunned silence. I watched until their car turned the corner. Back inside the house felt impossibly quiet. I sank onto the couch and closed my eyes, letting the relief wash through me. That evening, Mom called. "I heard what happened," she whispered. I described the police visit, the footage, the threats. When I told her Clara had no legal standing, she choked back tears and said, "I'm sorry I didn't see sooner. By the time I said goodbye, I felt lighter than I have in months." The next morning, I ran my usual route through the neighborhood and waved at familiar faces who'd seen the police. No one gossiped. They just smiled supportively. I returned home to reorganize my office, purge Clara's ghost from my calendar, and recommit to my routines. Later, I brought Ben and Mia back for an afternoon of cookie baking. Their laughter returned as they helped measure flour-cracked eggs and fought over sprinkles. When the timer dinged, they held out a warm tray of chocolate chips that smelled like forgiveness. I pulled them into a hug, promising safe nights and honest mornings from now on. As I watched those two goofy, sugar-coated smiles, I realized Clara's next move would matter less to me than the home I'd reclaimed, one where boundaries protect love instead of eroding it. In the week after Clara's forced departure, the house settled into a peaceful routine I hadn't known in months. Each morning, I woke to the soft hum of my security system running its checks and pixels stretching at the foot of my bed. The emptiness upstairs no longer felt oppressive, but restorative, a reminder that my home was meant for me and those I chose to protect. When my parents dropped Ben and Mia off each afternoon, the kids bounded in with stories of Clara's new apartment, a cramped one-bedroom that Mom found through her contacts at work, and how Clara was struggling to juggle a full-time bartending job with school pickups. They told me about silent nights when their mother came home exhausted and barely glanced at them before collapsing on the couch. Hearing their voices crack with longing for the mother who'd abandoned them reawakened a fierce protectiveness in me. I made sure their afternoons here were filled with laughter. We whipped up pancakes and giggled over kitchen messes, read The Chronicles of Narnia aloud, and built blanket forts under the dining table. I listened to them recount every detail of the day, from Mia's victory in gym class to Ben's discovery of a ladybug in the garden, and I marveled at how quickly joy could return when you remove toxicity. Meanwhile, Clara sent me occasional texts, an apology, a request to see the kids, a vague promise that she was getting better. I ignored most of them, choosing boundaries over guilt. But when she appeared at my door one afternoon, tears in her eyes and Mia's teddy bear clutched in her hand, I hesitated. She stammered through an apology that sounded rehearsed, her shoulders heaving as she explained that her landlord had evicted her for noise complaints and unpaid rent. She had nowhere else to go. Behind her, the kids peered around the frame, their faces a painful mix of hope and confusion. My chest tightened as I remembered how her presence had suffocated me. Yet watching their frightened eyes, I felt the old tug to rescue them once more. I stepped back gently, closing the door without a word, and walking away as the door clicked shut. Their muffled whimpers echoed in the hallway, and I pressed my forehead to the wood, unwilling to let guilt erode the boundary I'd built. Instead, I called Mom and Dad. "We need a plan," I said. Together, we arranged for temporary foster care through a trusted agency, and Mom volunteered to supervise regular visits so the kids wouldn't feel abandoned. Clara's visits became structured Wednesday afternoons at the community center, with a counselor present to ease tension and teach healthy habits. The first few sessions were rocky. Clara canceled one, arrived late to another, and still smelled of alcohol, but she showed up. Over time, I saw her shoulders relax when the counselor acknowledged her fears, and her voice strove for calm when she spoke to the kids. She apologized again this time, not for the inconvenience she'd caused me, but for the pain she'd inflicted on her own children. Watching her struggle to break free of old patterns stirred empathy I didn't expect to feel. One evening after a session, Clara called me quietly. "Thank you for not shutting me out completely. I'm learning how to be here for them." I realized then that she was finally taking responsibility, no more blaming me or Mom. I answered, "Keep showing up, that's all they need." In the days that followed, I balanced my work with co-parenting coordination, arranging carpools, approving school permissions, and sharing progress notes with Clara so she'd feel included. The tension between us softened into a wary truce, grounded in respect rather than obligation. When I tucked Ben and Mia into my guest room for a weekend stay, they whispered, "Aunt Alex, we love you." My throat caught as I replied, "I love you both," knowing that family wasn't just about blood, but about who stood by you when it mattered most. As I closed the door behind them, I felt a cautious optimism bloom. Clara still had miles to go on her journey, and I would keep the door open under the right circumstances. Over the next few months, I watched Clara transform in ways I never thought possible, and in turn, I found a new sense of purpose beyond the boundaries I first drew. After our first few rocky supervised visits at the community center, she began to arrive on time, sober, and with little gifts for the kids, a new chapter book for Ben, a sketch pad for Mia. The counselor praised her progress. She'd completed parenting classes, joined a support group, and even found an affordable studio apartment close to the children's school. When I picked them up for weekend visits, Clara greeted me with a quiet confidence rather than the desperation that once shadowed her face. In those moments, I saw a mother who was learning to balance her own needs with those of her children. One Saturday afternoon, I drove with the kids to Clara's new place. It was small, one bedroom, a compact kitchen and living area, but it glowed with fresh paint, cheerful curtains, and a bookshelf full of library books. Clara stood in the doorway wearing work clothes, her hair pulled back, and Mia ran to her with open arms. Ben lingered behind, then sprinted for a hug so fierce he nearly knocked Clara off her feet. I smiled, realizing that home isn't measured in square feet, but in the love that fills a space. Clara invited me inside and offered coffee. She poured from a thermos I once gave her, the one she broke last year. As she handed me a cup, her hands trembled slightly. "I'm still a work in progress," she said softly, "but I'm here." I nodded, remembering the nights I waited up for her, worried about her late arrivals. "You're doing great," I replied. "They see you. They know you care." Over warm sips, we made a plan. Clara would continue counseling, hold her bartending job with better hours, and take over pickup duty every Wednesday and Friday. I would handle Tuesday and Thursday, plus occasional emergencies. We agreed on a shared calendar app so nothing fell through the cracks. Then, with a glance at her phone and a deep breath, Clara apologized again, this time from the heart, for every broken promise, for using me as a crutch, and for the guilt she'd piled on me and the kids. Tears brimmed in her eyes, but they were honest tears, the ones that followed genuine accountability. I reached across the table and touched her hand. "We're sisters," I said, "and family finds its way back." The next morning, I woke in my own bed, but my mind was already at Clara's as I prepared my weekly pickup. By the time the school bus dropped off Ben and Mia, they burst through the door shouting "Aunt Alex" and raced upstairs to show me their new art projects. We spent the afternoon at the park, where Clara joined us for the first time in months. She pushed Mia on the swings while I kicked a soccer ball with Ben. We laughed when the ball rolled into a muddy puddle and Clara jumped in to retrieve it, splashing us both. I felt tears sting my eyes, not of sorrow this time, but of relief and joy. When we finally headed home, Clara walked beside me, arm in arm, her steps steady. At my front door, she turned to me, holding out the teddy bear Mia had left behind. "Thank you," she said simply. I took it and felt the bear's worn fur, a reminder of how far we'd come. Inside, I hugged the kids, and for a moment, the past year felt like a distant storm. That night, after tucking Ben and Mia into my guest room, I closed the door and leaned against it, smiling into the quiet. My home had survived the chaos, grown stronger with boundaries and honesty, and embraced a renewed sense of family. As I lay in bed that night, Pixel curled beside me, I realized that forgiveness doesn't erase the past. It honors the growth it inspires. Clara still has her challenges ahead, but now she has the tools and support to meet them. And I have the peace of knowing I acted out of love, not obligation. Our story didn't end with a dramatic victory or a final blow. It continues in every timely text message, in every shared cup of coffee, and in the laughter that echoes through these walls. That, I believe, is the truest form of justice and the deepest kind of revenge against the chaos that once ruled our lives. A revenge built on resilience, respect, and the quiet power of reclaiming home. Story 2. With a knot in my gut, I entered the restaurant. Dinner for my sister Emma's birthday. Another year, I would be thrilled, but I only felt fear tonight. As usual, Emma was the focus of attention as the waiter escorted me to our table, where my parents and other family members were already seated. "Lucy." At last, my mother yelled, "Without you, we were going to place our order." Emma, who is 18, now smiled like she often does when she wants something. "Hello, sister. I'm glad you were able to attend." I sat down at the vacant seat they had reserved for me after giving her a brief embrace. By the time my uncle said something, my dad had already had 2 drinks and was laughing too loudly. My cousin was showing everyone photos of her new baby while my mom fussed over Emma's hair. I should probably give my introduction. My name is Lucy, 36 years old, employed at a software company as the director of marketing. I've always been the family's responsible member, particularly with Emma. I've been her safety net for the past 10 years, helping her find a position at my friend's firm, paying for her college education, fronting the money for her car, and paying her rent for the last 5 years. Why family does that after all? Apparently. At least my parents have instilled that belief in me ever since Emma was born. "Lucy is your younger sister. You must watch out for her." And I did. I still do, but occasionally I question whether I've done too much. "Let's place our order," my father said, gesturing to the waiter. Then comes the present. It was a good dinner. We sipped good wine, ate expensive spaghetti, and listened to Emma talk about her work at the marketing firm where I had helped her land a job. She was overdue for a promotion after 3 years of service. The identical thing she had been repeating for the past year and a half will soon be repeated. My aunt handed Emma a high-end scarf when it came time to exchange gifts. After my parents got her a brand new iPad, it was my time. I took the envelope with the symbolic check for her Hawaii vacation out of my purse. 3 weeks prior, the entire $12,000 of the real money had already been deposited into her account. I'm keeping this for myself? Sliding the envelope across the table, I said. With a theatrical gasp, Emma opened it. Oh my God, she said to the table, wiping away imaginary tears. Lucy is paying for my Hawaii trip. This is really kind of you. I mustered a smile as everyone at the table cheered. If only they were aware of the origin of that gift. I was at my folks' house for our usual Sunday supper 3 weeks ago. Before Emma cleared her throat before dessert, everything was as usual. I've been considering what I want for my birthday this year, she remarked. My mother smiled. Sweetheart, what is it? After my birthday, I'd like to visit Hawaii. It would be fantastic. She then gave me a stern look and said, Lucy will pay for it as a gift for me. My coffee almost choked me. What? Yes, you always express your desire for me to travel and experience new things. This would be ideal. I put my cap down. How much does such a trip cost, Emma? She dismissively waved her hand. Not very much. Like $12,000. $12,000. I couldn't contain my shock when I spoke. Emma's tone abruptly changed as she remarked, It's not that much for you. You earn a lot of money. Emma, that's a very costly present. I spoke slowly. That is beyond my means. Can't afford it or just don't want to spend it on me. Her eyes narrowed. You're so cheap, Lucy. You make 6 figures and you're too selfish to give your only sister a decent birthday present. Emma, I paid for your entire college education. I helped you buy your car. I'm currently paying your rent. I've been supporting you for a decade. That's what family does. She shouted, standing up. We don't count the money we spend on each other. God, you're so bitter. My parents just sat there saying nothing as Emma stormed out of the room when the front door slammed. I turned to them. You can't seriously think I should pay for this. My dad frowned. Lucy, you do earn more than she does, and you know she's always wanted to go to Hawaii. My mom added, I have my own expenses. I protested. I'm trying to save for my future too. Your sister needs your help, my dad said firmly. Family comes first. I left their house that night feeling like I was losing my mind. Was I crazy for thinking a $12,000 vacation was an unreasonable gift for the next week? My phone buzzed constantly with texts from both Emma and my parents. Emma is so upset. You don't think she deserves this. She works so hard and just wants one nice vacation. You have more than enough money to help your sister. Don't be selfish, Lucy. I held out for as long as I could, but after days of this, I finally broke. I transferred the money to Emma's account with a simple text. Happy birthday. Enjoy. Hawaii. Her response. Thanks, I knew you'd come through. And now here I was watching everyone praise my generosity. Completely unaware it had been practically extorted from me as Emma soaked in the attention showing everyone the resort where she'd be staying. I felt a small sense of relief. At least this was over. I could go back to my life and Emma would get her perfect vacation. Emma flew to Hawaii 2 days after her birthday party. I went back to my normal routine, working, hitting the gym, and finally getting some peace and quiet without constant demands from my family. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe. My phone buzzed constantly with Instagram notifications. Emma was making sure everyone knew exactly how amazing her vacation was. Sunrise yoga on the beach, expensive cocktails at resort bars, designer swimsuits posed perfectly against turquoise waters. Each photo captioned with some variation of living my best life or paradise found. I scrolled through them while eating takeout in my apartment, feeling a mix of annoyance and relief that at least she was enjoying the vacation I paid for so long. Check out Emma's post, my mom texted. Doesn't she look happy? You did a good thing, Lucy. I didn't respond. They always did. This made me feel guilty, then praised me once I gave in, as if that somehow balanced the scales. A week into my vacation, I was at work finalizing a presentation when my phone rang, my parents' number. Unusual for them to call during work hours. Hello, Lucy. My mom's voice sounded strange, shaky. It's Emma. There's been an accident. My stomach dropped. What happened? Is she okay? She was on some mountain tour. My mom explained, her voice cracking. She climbed up on a rock to take a selfie and she fell into a gorge. Oh my God. I stood up from my desk, already grabbing my purse. How bad is it? She's alive, my dad's voice now. They must have put me on speaker. Broken leg. Some cuts and bruises. They're saying she was lucky. Which hospital? I'll book a flight right now. No need for that. My mom said quickly, the doctors say she's stable. She'll be coming home in a couple of weeks. Once she's cleared to fly. Something in her tone made me pause. Let me talk to her. She's resting now, but I'll have her call you when she wakes up. I hung up and immediately tried calling MSL. To my surprise, she answered. What? Her voice was called flat. Emma, are you okay? Mom and Dad just told me what happened. I'm in the hospital. Can't talk now. Her voice sounded distant, almost hostile. Do you need anything? Should I come? She cut me off. No, I have to go. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, confused. I'd expected her to be upset or in pain, but not angry. I couldn't understand why she was being so cold with me for the next 2 weeks. I tried calling her several times, but she either didn't answer or spoke briefly before hanging up. My parents gave me updates, but they were strangely vague. Something wasn't right, but I couldn't put my finger on what. When Emma was finally scheduled to return, I offered to pick her up from the airport. Actually, my mom said, hesitantly, Emma asked if we could come get her instead. But why? I can help with her luggage, get her settled at home. She'd prefer if we helped her this time. I backed off her, then confused, but assuming Emma was just in pain and irritable. Over the next week, I sent her a text checking in, offering to bring food or help with anything she needed while recovering. Her responses were minimal. Fine, no thanks, don't need anything. Then, exactly 1 week after her return, I opened my email to find something unexpected. A medical bill from Hawaii Regional Medical Center amount to $15,000. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Why would Emma's medical bills come to me? I dialed her number immediately. Why did you send me your hospital bill? I asked when she picked up. Because you're paying it, she replied matter-of-factly. I laughed, thinking she was joking. Very funny. Seriously, why did you forward this to me? I'm not joking, Lucy. This is your responsibility. My responsibility. How exactly is your medical bill my responsibility? You paid for the trip, she said, her voice hardening. If you hadn't sent me to Hawaii, I wouldn't have gotten hurt. I nearly dropped my phone. Are you serious right now? You wanted that trip? You begged for it? You climbed a rock to take a selfie and you paid for it, she shouted. Which makes you liable if you don't pay this bill? I'll see you and get the money anyway. Sue me. Have you lost your mind? This is insane, Emma. Whatever. You have the bill, pay it by the end of the month. Her tone was so dismissive, so entitled. I could hardly believe it was my sister speaking. I'm not paying a cent, I said firmly. This is ridiculous. We'll see about that. She snapped before hanging up. I paced around my apartment, too angry to sit still. How dare she? After everything that I'd done for her over the years now, she expected me to foot the bill for her own carelessness. I thought back to how they pressured me into paying for the vacation in the first place. The constant texts, the guilt trips, the family dinner. Ambush. When I'd calmed down enough to think clearly, I called my parents. Surely they would see how unreasonable Emma was being. Mom? Dad? Did you know Emma sent me her medical bill and is demanding I pay it? There was a pause, too long to be anything but meaningful. Well, my dad finally said her travel insurance didn't cover all the treatment, and I prompted. And she doesn't have that kind of money, my mom added softly. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Are you saying you think I should pay it? You did pay for the trip? Honey, my mom said. And you know Emma is still struggling financially. This is insane, I said. I'm not paying for her hospital bills. That's not how this works. Lucy, be reasonable, my dad started. No, absolutely not. I'm done. I hung up and threw my phone onto the couch. Within minutes, it started buzzing with messages from my parents. Please reconsider. Family helps. Family, don't be selfish. And from Emma. Hope you're ready to go to court. Selfish bastard. Pathetic spinster with nothing better to do than count your money. Each message made my blood boil hotter than the last. I was done being their ATM. Done being manipulated into footing the bill for everything. I sat at my kitchen table shaking with anger as I scrolled through Emma's texts. The name she called me: greedy, selfish, bitter spinster. Each one hurt more than the last 10 years of support. And this was how she repaid me. I opened my laptop and logged into my bank account. I needed to know exactly how much I'd spent on Emma over the years. My fingers moved quickly through folders of financial records. I thankfully kept organized. College tuition $42,000 for 4 years at state car payment, $9,500. Half of her Honda rent payments, $1,000, $250 per month, for 5 years, $75,000. I kept digging emergency dental work when she cracked a tooth. The professional wardrobe I bought when she started her job. The loan for her security deposit that was never repaid. The list grew longer, the total higher. By the time I finished, I was staring at a number that made me feel physically ill. $138, $720, $138, $720. More than enough for a down payment on a house while my own dream vacation, or a significant chunk of retirement savings. Instead, it had all gone to Emma, and now she wanted more. I opened a new email and attached a PDF with all the expenses neatly itemized and totaled in the subject line. I wrote payment due in the body of the email Emma attached as a complete accounting of all expenses I've covered for you over the past 10 years. Total $138, $720. You have 3 months to repay this amount in full, or I will pursue legal action to recover these funds. Lucy, I hit send before I could second guess myself. My hands were trembling, but for the first time in years, it wasn't from anxiety. It was from a strange sense of power. Less than 30 minutes later, my phone exploded with notifications calls from my parents. Texts from Emma. Voicemails filling up my inbox. I silenced it all. Instead, I opened my banking app and navigated to my scheduled payment. There it was. Emma's rent $250 scheduled for the 1st. I canceled it with a single tap. Then I blocked my parents and Emma's numbers for good measure. I blocked them on all social media to that night. I slept better than I had in years. 3 days passed in blissful silence. I went to work, met a friend for coffee, even signed up for a pottery class. I'd been wanting to try. It was as if a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Then came the knock at my door. I looked through the people to see Emma leaning on a crutch, her leg in a cast, flanked by our parents. Their faces were grim. For a moment I considered not answering, but this confrontation was inevitable. I took a deep breath and opened the door. "Lucy," my mom started. "We need to talk. Come in," I said flatly, stepping aside. Emma hobbled in, making a show of wincing with every step. My dad helped her to the couch while my mom hovered anxiously. "What's this?" My dad thrust his phone at me, showing my email to Emma. "It's an invoice," I replied simply. "For all the money I've spent supporting Emma over the years, you can't be serious." My mom said, her voice rising. "Family helps family. You can't just demand she pay you back." "Everything." I looked directly at Emma. "Why not? She's demanding I pay her medical bills." My parents exchanged uncomfortable glances. Emma stared at the floor. "That's different. My dad attempted hell." I challenged. "Explain to me how it's different." Silence filled the room. "You see," I continued, "it's only different because you all expect me to give and give. But the moment I ask for anything in return, even just basic gratitude." "I'm being selfish, we never said," my mom began. "You said it plenty." I cut her off. "Every time you pressured me to pay for something else, every time you dismissed my concerns about money, every time you made me feel guilty for having boundaries." Emma finally spoke, her voice quiet. "I'm not suing you, okay? I'll figure something out with the medical bills." "Good." I nodded, because if you did sue me, I'd countersued for every penny I've spent on you. And I have records of it all. "You've made your point," my dad said stiffly. "Now can we move past this? We're family." "Yes, we are, which is why I have something else to tell you all." I took a deep breath. "I've canceled my payment for Emma's rent, and I won't be providing any financial assistance to any of you going forward." Emma's face crumpled. "What? But I can't afford my apartment without your help." "You'll figure it out," I said, echoing her own dismissive tone from our phone call. "Get a roommate. Move to a cheaper place. Ask for a raise. There are options." "You're just going to cut me off after all these years?" Tears welled in her eyes. "This is cruel, Lucy," my mom said, her voice breaking. "Your sister needs..." "You know what's cruel is treating me like an ATM for a decade, and then demanding more when I finally say enough is enough." Emma was fully crying now, those same tears she'd used to manipulate me countless times before. My parents looked at me like I was a stranger. "I don't want to be your bank anymore," I said, moving toward the door and opening it. "I think you should leave now." My dad helped Emma up, supporting her as she hobbled toward the exit. My mom lingered. her expression a mix of anger and disbelief. "You've changed, Lucy," she said softly. Yes, I agreed. I finally have. The next few weeks were strange. The silence from my family created both a void and a freedom I wasn't used to. I filled my newly available time with things I enjoyed reading, hiking, reconnecting with old friends who'd faded into the background while I was constantly handling Emma's crises. I started therapy trying to understand the dynamics that had led to this situation. Why had I let it go on so long? Why did I feel responsible for everyone else's happiness? Just as I was starting to find my footing in this new reality, my assistant buzzed my office intercom. "Lucy, your sister is here to see you." I closed my eyes, centering myself. "Tell her I'm in a meeting. She says it's urgent and she's making quite a scene in reception." Of course she was. Emma never could take no for an answer. "Send her in." I sighed, the door opened, and there was Emma still in her cast, looking as pitiful as possible. She dressed down, I noticed immediately. Worn jeans, a plain t-shirt, minimal makeup, the opposite of her usual polished appearance. A calculated move to appear desperate and broke. "Lucy," she said, her voice catching dramatically. "Please, I need to talk to you." "What do you want, Emma?" I asked, gesturing for her to sit down. She lowered herself into the chair across from my desk, adjusting her crutches against the wall. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail instead of her usual perfect blowout. "I can't pay my rent," she said, her voice small. "They're going to evict me." I leaned back in my chair. "That's unfortunate. Lucy, please, I need you to reconsider. Just until I can figure something out. I don't have anywhere else to go." "What about Mom and Dad's place?" She grimaced. "Their house is so small, and with my leg like this." She gestured at her cast. "I need my own space to recover." "You mean you need me to continue paying for your lifestyle?" "It's not like that," she insisted, her voice rising slightly, then seemingly remembering her strategy. She softened again. "I'm struggling. I really am. I can barely afford groceries right now." "Emma, do you have any idea how much money I've spent supporting you over the years? I know, and I'm grateful, I really am." A single tear rolled down her cheek, right on cue. "If you were grateful, you wouldn't have tried to stick me with your medical bills. You wouldn't have called me names when I refused. I was in pain. I wasn't thinking clearly." I sighed, feeling suddenly tired of this endless cycle. "The answer is still no. I'm not paying your rent anymore." Her face changed, then the vulnerability vanishing. She straightened up, eyes narrowing. "Fine. You know what? You're going to regret this." And then she started to sob loudly, dramatically. My office walls were thin, and I knew everyone outside could hear. "Everyone's going to know what you did," she cried, voice rising. "How you abandoned your own sister when she was injured, when she had nowhere to go." A few curious faces appeared in this glass wall of my office. "Great! Stop it." "Emma, you're heartless," she wailed. After everything we've been through, I picked up my phone and pressed the button for security. "Yes, Miss Wilson, could you please come to my office? I have someone who needs to be escorted out." My eyes widened in disbelief. "You're calling security on me? Your own sister?" "Yes," I said calmly, "and if you ever tried to come to my workplace and make a scene again, I'll get a restraining order." The security guard, Ramon, appeared at my door. "Everything okay, Miss Wilson?" "My sister was just leaving." I said, "Could you please make sure she exits the building and she's not to be allowed back in?" Ramon nodded, stepping into the office. "Ma'am, I'll need you to come with me." Emma grabbed her crutches, glaring at me with such hatred it was almost impressive. "This isn't over." "Yes, it is," I replied. "It's been over for a while, I just didn't realize it until now." After she left, I closed my office door and took a few deep breaths. My hands were shaking, but not from regret. From relief. I'd finally done it. I'd finally stood up for myself. That was 4 months ago. I haven't spoken to Emma or my parents since that day. Through mutual relatives, I've heard bits and pieces. Emma couldn't afford her apartment and moved back in with our parents. They're all still furious with me, telling anyone who will listen. How I abandoned the family when they needed me most. But for the first time in my adult life, I'm living completely for myself. I've moved to a nicer apartment, started a retirement fund, and even booked my own vacation for later this year to Japan, a place I've always wanted to visit. Sometimes I feel guilty, especially late at night, when memories of happier family time surface. I wonder if I was too harsh, too final in my decision to cut them off. Then I remember the look on my face when I refused to pay her medical bills. Not shock or hurt, but anger that her manipulation hadn't worked. I remember my parents always taking her side, always expecting me to give more. I remember 10 years of being treated like nothing more than a checkbook. Last week I ran into my cousin at the grocery store. She asked how I was doing, said my parents had told her I was going through something. I laughed and told her I was doing better than ever. "But aren't you lonely?" She asked, genuine concern in her voice. "Without your family," I thought about it for a moment before answering. "I was lonelier when I was with them," I said finally, because they never really saw me. Just what I could do for them. She didn't understand. Maybe no one who hasn't been in my position really can. Yesterday I got a text from an unknown number. It was Emma. "Hey, it's me. Got a new phone. Can we talk? I miss you." I stared at it for a long time, feeling the old pull, the urge to fix things to make everyone happy, to be the responsible one again. Instead, I typed, "I'm not interested in resuming contact, unless you're ready to acknowledge how you treated me and apologize." Then I blocked the number. Maybe someday we'll find our way back to some kind of relationship. One with boundaries, respect, and actual reciprocity, but I'm not holding my breath, and I'm not putting my life on hold waiting for it to happen. For now, I'm enjoying the freedom of not being anyone's ATM, of making decisions based solely on what I want and need, of discovering who I am outside of being my sister and my parents' dutiful daughter. It turns out I like that person quite a bit. She's stronger than I ever gave her credit for. Story 3. Hey, I'm Amanda. I'm 34 now, and honestly, I didn't think that Friday would be anything special. Just another typical day running my business, handling decisions, and heading back to my quiet, empty apartment. Peaceful, sure, but lonely sometimes. Growing up, I was always kind of invisible. My parents never really tried to hide the fact that my little sister Olivia, she's 8 years younger than me, was their clear favorite. By the time I left for college, things between me and my parents were already strained. And after that, whatever relationship we had just faded away. They poured all their attention into Olivia while I worked hard to build my own life from scratch. I haven't been to their house in years. The last major thing we shared was my wedding, and even that felt more like an obligation for them. They showed up for a short while with Olivia, threw in some backhanded comments about my plain dress, gave a couple of half-hearted toasts, and left before the cake was even cut. When I got divorced 2 years ago at 32, they called only to express their disappointment in me. That pretty much sums up our relationship, distant and cold. That Friday started like any other. I was reviewing quarterly reports when my phone rang. I usually ignore personal calls during work hours, but seeing my sister's name on the screen made me curious. We hadn't spoken in months. "Hello, Olivia," I answered, keeping my voice neutral. "Amanda," she said, her voice dripping with the superiority I'd grown accustomed to. "I'm having a party this Friday at Mom and Dad's. I got promoted at work." "Congratulations," I said sincerely. Despite our issues, I didn't wish her ill. "Yeah. So anyway," she continued dismissively, "I'm inviting you. You can come if you want. If you're not bothered by the fact that your little sister is more successful than you." I almost snorted at the irony, but managed to keep my composure. If only she knew that I ran a multi-million-dollar company with over 100 employees. "I'll definitely come," I replied calmly. "Really?" She sounded surprised. "Well, it starts at 7. Don't be late." After hanging up, I couldn't help but laugh. The audacity of my sister never ceased to amaze me. Around 4 that afternoon, I decided to call it a day. "James," I called to my assistant as he passed my office door. "I'm heading out early today. My sister's having some kind of promotion party." James smiled. "That works out well. I'm leaving early too. My fiancé is having a party tonight at home." I took my time getting ready. I chose a simple but elegant black dress. Nothing flashy, but definitely expensive to the trained eye. My apartment reflected my success. Spacious with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Minimalist furniture and original artwork, none of which my family had ever seen. Driving to my parents' suburban home felt like traveling back in time. The house was smaller than I remembered, but otherwise unchanged. I parked behind a row of cars and took a deep breath before walking to the door. My mother opened it, her expression barely changing at the sight of me. "Amanda, you came." "I said I would," I replied. She looked me up and down. "Try to be happy for your sister tonight, okay? Don't spoil this by being envious. Olivia is celebrating a promotion. She has a fiancé and, well, you know your situation." I bit my tongue to stop myself from laughing. "I'll behave." "Mom, I promise not to envy her too much." My father gave me an equally lukewarm greeting, merely nodding in my direction before returning to his conversation with relatives. I barely recognized. The house was filled with family, friends, and relatives all chatting excitedly. I grabbed a glass of wine and found a quiet corner to observe. Most of these people hadn't seen me in years, and few made an effort to speak with me. The crowd suddenly hushed as Olivia made her grand entrance, descending the stairs in a sparkly gold dress that caught every light in the room. She beamed as everyone applauded. "Thank you all for coming," she announced, her voice carrying across the room. "I'm so thrilled to share this special moment with you. After all my hard work, I've finally been promoted to senior account manager." My parents were practically glowing with pride as Olivia worked the room, telling anyone who would listen about her accomplishments. "The company director even has coffee with me several times a month," I overheard her telling her aunt. "He says I'm on the fast track to executive level." I maintained a polite smile, sipping my wine slowly. Eventually, Olivia made her way to me, her smile turning slightly predatory. "I honestly didn't think you'd come," she said, looking me up and down. "I invited you to be polite, not to show off what a successful person can achieve." She gestured to herself with a flourish. I raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Emboldened by my silence, she raised her voice. "You know what, Amanda? Maybe it's better if you just leave. I want to be surrounded by successful people tonight, not losers like you." The room fell silent. All eyes turned toward us from the corner of my eye. I saw my parents smirking, apparently amused by Olivia's cruelty. Instead of being embarrassed, I smiled calmly. I think I'll stay a little longer." "Don't worry. My failure isn't contagious. You and your successful friends are safe." Olivia's face flushed with anger, but before she could respond, the front door opened. A familiar figure stepped in, and Olivia's expression instantly transformed. She rushed over to her arms around him and kissed him. "Everyone," she announced, "this is my fiancé, James." I froze my glass halfway to my lips. My assistant, James. Suddenly, his comment about his fiancé's party made perfect sense. Olivia dragged James through the crowd, clearly eager to show him off. "You have to meet my sister," she said loudly, pulling him toward me. When James saw me, his eyes widened in shock. "Hi, boss," he said automatically. "Hello, James," I replied warmly. There was a moment of complete silence as everyone processed what had just happened. "Boss?" Olivia's voice had risen an octave. "What do you mean, boss?" James looked confused. "Your sister is the CEO of Reynolds Marketing. I'm her executive assistant." The silence in the room deepened. My parents stood frozen, mouth slightly open. Olivia's face went through a remarkable transformation, first blushing, then turning pale, then flashing red again. I finished my wine and set the glass down carefully. "Thank you for the invitation, Olivia. I should go now. I wouldn't want to spoil your party with my unsuccessful presence." My parents suddenly found their voices. "Amanda, wait. You misunderstood." My father started, but I was already walking toward the door, smiling to myself as the whispers erupted behind me back in my apartment. I kicked off my heels and laughed until my sides hurt. The look on Olivia's face when James called me boss was priceless. I made myself a mug of hot chocolate, turned off my phone, and settled into bed with a book, still chuckling about the evening's events. When I woke up the next morning and turned my phone back on, it immediately buzzed with notifications. 15 missed calls from my parents, 23 from Olivia, a dozen text messages, all variations of "call me immediately" and "we need to talk." I ignored them all and went about my Saturday as planned, yoga class, grocery shopping, and catching up on industry reports. I wasn't avoiding them exactly, but I wasn't in a rush to hear their sudden change of heart. Now that they knew I was successful around noon on Sunday, my phone rang again. Olivia. I almost ignored it, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hello," I answered. "Amanda," Olivia said, her voice unnaturally polite. "Can we meet? I'd like to talk to you." I raised an eyebrow at her tone. "Sure. Coffee shop near my place in an hour." "Perfect," she agreed quickly. "Text me the address." The coffee shop was quiet for a Sunday afternoon. I arrived early, ordered a latte, and watched Olivia enter. 15 minutes later, she looked around nervously before spotting me. Gone was the sparkly dress and arrogance, replaced by jeans and an almost timid demeanor. "Thanks for meeting me," she said, sliding into the seat across from me. "I wanted to apologize for what I said at the party. It was rude, and, well, I didn't know about your job." The apology sounded rehearsed, her eyes not quite meeting mine, but I could tell she wasn't sorry for what she said. She was sorry. She'd been wrong about me. "What do you really want?" I asked directly. Olivia dropped the act immediately. "Fine, now that I know you're loaded, I want you to help pay for my wedding. It's going to be expensive and James's salary. She trailed off with a dismissive wave. I nearly choked on my coffee. You're joking, right? Why would I joke? You're my sister and you're rich. Family helps. Family? Family, I repeated incredulously. For years, you and our parents have barely acknowledged my existence. Now that you know I'm successful, suddenly you want my help. Olivia, I will not be paying for your wedding. Her face hardened. Then don't expect an invitation. I couldn't help but laugh. Somehow I'll survive the disappointment. She stood up so quickly her chair scraped loudly against the floor. You're selfish. Amanda, you always have been. Goodbye, Olivia, I said calmly as she stormed out. I wasn't surprised when 30 minutes later a text from my mother appeared. Amanda, you're being selfish. Your sister deserves a beautiful wedding. Why can't you help her? We're your family. I put my phone away without responding. If anything, this confirmed what I already knew. They weren't interested in reconnecting with me. They were interested in my money. Monday morning, I arrived at work earlier than usual, hoping to get a head start on the week. James was already there looking uncomfortable. Amanda, he began as soon as I walked in. I'm so sorry about Friday night. I had no idea Olivia was your sister until I saw you there. I waved away his apology. You have nothing to be sorry for, James. Let's just start the day, shall we? Your relationship with my sister has nothing to do with our professional one. We fell back into our usual routine, reviewing the week schedule and prioritizing tasks. I was grateful for James's professionalism. He was an excellent assistant regardless of his poor taste in fiancé. A few uneventful days passed. I thought perhaps my sister had gotten the message, but I should have known better. Thursday afternoon, while I was in the middle of a conference call, the receptionist buzzed me. Miss Reynolds, there's an Olivia Carter here insisting on seeing you. She says she's your sister. I sighed. Tell her I'm in a meeting. I did. She says she'll wait. After finishing my call, I stepped out to find Olivia lounging in the reception area examining her nails. She jumped up when she saw me. Finally, your receptionist wouldn't let me through. She complained because I was in a meeting. What are you doing here, Olivia? She shrugged. I came to see James. I missed him. The smile she gave me was clearly fake. Can we talk in your office against my better judgment? I led her to my office as soon as the door closed. Her demeanor changed completely. $120,000, she said without preamble. Excuse me, that's all I need for the wedding. It's not even that much for someone like you. I stared at her, astounded by her audacity. The answer is still no. Olivia, why are you being so difficult? Her voice rose. You have the money. You're just being selfish and greedy. I think you should leave, I said firmly. Not until you agree to help me, she shouted, her face reddening. What kind of sister are you? The door opened and James stood there, his expression mortified. Olivia, what are you doing? Olivia spun around to face James, her expression quickly shifting from anger to something resembling sweetness. James, I was just talking to my sister about our wedding. Tell Amanda to help us with the ceremony. I remained silent, letting James handle the situation. Olivia, he said gently, we've talked about this. We can afford a modest wedding ourselves. Her face contorted with fury. Modest? I don't want modest. I want what I deserve, a spectacular wedding that everyone will talk about for years. Why should we settle when my sister is sitting on piles of money? That's enough, James said firmly, taking her arm. We should go. No. She yanked her arm away. Not until she agrees. She turned back to me. You owe me this. Amanda, after all those years of being the perfect daughter while you ran off to college. Perfect daughter. I couldn't help but laugh. Is that what you think happened? I left for college because our parents made it clear I wasn't the favorite? You were always going to be their precious baby no matter what. That's not true, Olivia shouted. You were always jealous of me. James took a more forceful approach now, practically steering Olivia toward the door. We're leaving now. She resisted, but was no match for James's determined grip as he escorted her out. I could hear her voice echoing down the hallway, still making demands and threats. I sat back in my chair, massaging my temples. A few minutes later, James returned, his face flushed with embarrassment. I'm so sorry about that, he said. I had no idea she would behave this way. It's not your fault. I assured him. I don't understand it, he continued. She's not usually like this. I raised an eyebrow but said nothing in my experience. Olivia had always been exactly like this. I'll talk to her. James promised. Make her understand that this behavior is unacceptable. I think it's best if she doesn't come to the office again. I said carefully. I'll have security add her to the restricted list. James nodded resignedly. I understand. I'm sorry it's come to this. The next day, the barrage began. Text messages from Olivia calling me selfish, heartless, and greedy. Voicemails from my mother demanding to know why I was tormenting my sister. Even my father called his message gruff and uncomfortable, saying I should do the right thing for family. I ignored them all. 4 years of experience had taught me that engaging only made things worse. By Sunday, I blocked all their numbers, removed them from my social media accounts, and instructed my email server to filter their messages directly to trash for a few days. Things were quiet. I focused on work, had dinner with friends, and even went on a date that, while pleasant, didn't lead to anything. I was beginning to think the storm had passed. Then Tuesday morning, as I pulled into my reserved parking space at work, Olivia darted out from between cars. You think you can just block me and I'll go away? She shouted as I stepped out of my car. You're not getting rid of me that easily. I looked around, noticing several employees watching the scene unfold. Olivia, this is not the place. Oh, I think it's exactly the place. Her voice echoed across the parking garage. Everyone should know what kind of person you really are. You're in love with my fiancé, aren't you? That's why you want help with the wedding. You're trying to sabotage my relationship. I was so stunned by the accusation that I couldn't immediately respond. In the silence, Olivia seemed to grow more confident. I've seen how you look at him. You're just jealous because I have someone and you're alone. You want him for yourself? Miss Reynolds, is everything all right? 2 security guards approached cautiously. No, everything is not all right, Olivia answered. Before I could, this woman is trying to steal my fiancé. Please escort my sister off the property, I said to the guards, finding my voice at last. She's not authorized to be here. You can't do this, Olivia screamed, as the guards gently but firmly guided her toward the exit. You can't just throw me out. I'm family. I walked into the building, aware of the whispers and stares. By the time I reached my office, James was already waiting, his face ashen. I just heard what happened, he said. Amanda, I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything, I replied, setting down my bag. But you do need to figure out this situation with Olivia. I can't have her showing up at my workplace making scenes. I know. He ran a hand through his hair. She's been different lately. Ever since she found out about your position, it's like she's obsessed with your money and accusing me of being in love with you. Where did that come from? James looked genuinely confused. I have no idea. I've never given her any reason to think there's anything but a professional relationship between us. Well, handle it, I said firmly. I don't want to have to get a restraining order against my own sister. He nodded and left, looking troubled. I spent the morning trying to focus on work, but my mind kept returning to Olivia's bizarre accusation. Was she just trying to hurt me, or did she genuinely believe I had designs on James? The thought was so absurd, I would have laughed if the situation wasn't so serious. That evening, I took additional precautions. I blocked my family's numbers on my home phone, added extra security measures to my apartment building, and even changed my routine for a few days, just in case Olivia decided to ambush me again. A week passed with no incidents, then 2. By the 3rd week, I was beginning to relax, thinking perhaps James had gotten through to Olivia after all. 1 month after the parking lot incident, James knocked on my office door just as I was wrapping up for the day. Got a minute? He asked, his expression serious but calmer than it had been in weeks. I wanted to let you know that I broke up with Olivia. I tried to hide my surprise. I'm sorry to hear that. Don't be. He shook his head. I should have done it sooner. After that scene she made here, things just got worse. She demanded I quit my job because she didn't want me working with you. She kept accusing me of having an affair with you when I refused to quit. She started checking my phone, showing up at my apartment unannounced. He trailed off, looking exhausted. I nodded, unsure what to say. James was a good guy who'd gotten caught in the crossfire of a dysfunctional family situation. Anyway, he continued. I just wanted you to know. I hope this means the disruptions to the office are over. I hope so too. I said sincerely, and James, take some time if you need it. You've been through a lot. He gave me a small smile. Thanks, but I'd rather stay busy. Work is a good distraction right now. Life settled back into a comfortable rhythm after that, without the constant threat of Olivia appearing, or my phone buzzing with angry messages. I found myself more relaxed than I'd been in months. I briefly wondered if my parents would reach out, perhaps to apologize or at least acknowledge the situation, but they remained silent. It confirmed what I'd always suspected. Their interest in reconnecting was solely based on what they thought they could get from me. With Olivia no longer engaged to my assistant and the prospect of a lavish wedding fading, they had no use for me. Strangely, I felt more at peace with that knowledge than I ever had before. For years, I'd carried a quiet hope that someday they might see me, really see me, and regret the relationship we'd never had. Now I accepted that it would never happen, and that acceptance was freeing. Spring turned to summer, and work kept me busy with new clients and expanding projects. James continued to be an exceptional assistant, never bringing a personal matters during work hours. Occasionally, we'd grab lunch together, and he seemed to be healing from the breakup, focusing on his career and reconnecting with friends. One Wednesday in late July, James came into my office with his usual stack of mail and messages, but he was practically bouncing with excitement. "Everything okay?" I asked, amused by his barely contained energy. "Actually, I wanted to ask you something personal," he said. "I've been seeing someone for a few months now. Her name is Claire. She's an architect, and, well, we're getting married." "James, that's wonderful news," I said, genuinely happy for him. "Congratulations." He beamed. "Thank you. We're having a small ceremony next month. Just close friends and family. I'd really like it if you could come, me." The invitation caught me off guard. "Of course you've been more than just a boss to me, especially through everything that happened with..." He paused. "Well, you've been a friend, and it would mean a lot to have you there." I was touched by his words. "I'd be honored." "James?" "Thank you." He looked relieved. "Great. I'll send you the details. It's nothing fancy, just a small garden ceremony at Claire's parents' place, then dinner afterward." "It sounds perfect," I said sincerely. After James left, I sat thinking about how strange life could be. A year ago, I'd been perfectly content with my solitary existence, keeping my family at arm's length and focusing solely on my career. Now I was being invited to my assistant's wedding, an assistant who had nearly become my brother-in-law. The day of James's wedding arrived warm and clear. The ceremony was exactly as he described, simple, intimate, in a beautifully landscaped garden behind a charming craftsman home. Claire was lovely, radiating happiness as she and James exchanged vows under an arch of summer flowers. During the reception, I sat with a small group of James's colleagues, enjoying the relaxed atmosphere and excellent food. As I watched James and Claire laughing together, surrounded by people who genuinely cared for them, I felt a pang of something, not quite envy, but awareness of what was missing in my own life. My career had always been my priority, especially after my divorce. I'd convinced myself that professional success was enough, that I didn't need deep personal connections, but seeing the joy on James's face made me wonder if I'd been wrong. "Amanda." I turned to see James approaching his new wife beside him. "I'm so glad you could make it," he said. "I wanted to properly introduce you to Claire." Claire smiled warmly. "James has told me so much about you. Thank you for coming today." "I wouldn't have missed it," I replied honestly. It was a beautiful ceremony, as they moved on to greet other guests. I found myself smiling. Maybe it was the romantic setting or the champagne, but I felt a renewed sense of possibility. My family situation might be a mess, but that didn't mean the rest of my life had to be. I stayed until the last guests were leaving, congratulated James and Claire one final time, and drove home under a sky full of stars. My apartment felt quiet, but not lonely. When I returned, I kicked off my heels, made a cup of tea, and stood by the window looking out at the city lights. I felt a surprising sense of contentment. My parents might never appreciate me for who I was. My sister might never see beyond her jealousy and entitlement. But I had built a good life for myself, a successful career, and now perhaps new friendships forming. Sometimes family isn't who you're born to, but who you choose to let into your life. At 34, I was finally learning that lesson, and it felt like a new beginning.